This evening, Books and Books is honored to welcome back Mr. Nilo Cruz, presenting his new play Sotto Voce. Mr. Cruz is the author of the Pulitzer Prize-winning play Anna in the Tropics, as well as Beauty of the Father, Two Sisters and a Piano, Lorca in a Green Dress, Night Train to Bolina, and other works. In this play, he brings us the story of Bernadette Kahn, an 80-year-old German-born writer who spends her days in her apartment trying to forget the past, until Saquiel Raffaeli, a young Jewish Cuban researcher, appears on her doorstep, forcing her to confront these haunted memories. As you all know, Mr. Cruz is a highly acclaimed writer. Of this play, our own Christine Dolan from the Miami Herald said, "The poetry of Cruz's writing is what those who love his work cite most often about his style. Cruz may be that rarity, a poet of the stage, but he is first and foremost a dramatist." Here to tell us about Sotto Voce, please give a very warm welcome to Mr. Nilo Cruz.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for coming out on a weeknight after work, or maybe if you're retired, in in your leisure time. It would please me so much if we can begin the evening with just a moment of silence to honor those that we lost this last weekend at the massacre in Orlando. I'm going to take my hat, and so if we take a moment, please. Thank you. I'm actually going to start with another play that I just finished writing instead of Sotto Voce. Is that okay? Okay. I just came from doing a workshop at the MacArthur Theater in Princeton, New Jersey, and the MacArthur Theater is a place that I love very much because it's at MacArthur Theater where I've done several plays there, but they were the ones responsible for doing Anna in the Tropics, the Anna in the Tropics that actually went to Broadway, and they're going to do my new play, which is called Bathing in Moonlight, and which actually it opens in September. So if you're in the Princeton area, I invite you to come to the MacArthur Theater. This play, Bathing in Moonlight, actually takes place here in Miami, in the neighborhood called Buena Vista. And I think this is, and it's a Cuban family. For some reason, I know that a lot of Cubans don't live there, but for some reason, they decided to buy a house in Buena Vista. But at this point in time, they are losing their property. And thanks to a very kind priest named Father Monroe, he has purchased the house so they can stay living in it. So it's a Cuban family, and it gets a little complicated because it's sort of inspired by a Father Alberto story, loosely inspired, and so the priest, fortunately and unfortunately, falls in love with the daughter of this family. But in this scene, there's the matriarch of the family. Her name is Martina. Probably she was named after La Cucarachita Martina from the fairy tale, the little cockroach. And but Martina is a lady who is in her late 70s, probably early 80s, and I think she is suffering from divine dementia. because I think her mind is magical. So in this scene, Martina discovers the ghost of her husband, who is visiting in the house for some reason. When one reads for the theater, I would read the name of the character and, of course, the dialogue. So if you hear the name, that's the character speaking. So here we go with Martina. Martina enters the living room. She sees a man dressed in the style of another time. He looks like an apparition. He is actually the ghost of her husband, Taviano Sr. He hasn't aged. He looks exactly the same as when Martina first met him. Martina. Taviano? Taviano? Taviano says, hello, Martina? Martina, is that really you? Or is it my mind playing tricks on me? Taviano, who do you think I am? Martina, are you testing my memory or my forgetfulness? Taviano, no, I'm just asking. Martina, you look the same. My lost husband. Taviano, do I? Martina, how come you look so young and I seem so old? Taviano, because this is how you remember me. Martina, then my memory hasn't failed me. Marcela says I forget things. And you? How do you remember me? Taviano, just like you remember me. Martina, does this mean that if I make a mental effort, if I remember myself young, I can look youthful like you? Taviano, yes. In your eyes and mine. But we shouldn't force our youth on other people's eyes. Martina, you think they will hold a grudge against us? That is, if they see us young again? Taviano, oh, we will have to come up with an excuse. Martina, do you mean if we're discovered by time? Taviano, no, not so much by time. But between us, there lies a nebulous world. Martina, you mean the world is confused? Taviano, no, not the world. The light is confused around me. Martina, how can the light be confused around you? Taviano, because it doesn't know how to sketch a shadow around me. Martina, am I dreaming you, Taviano? Taviano, I would like to think that life is dreaming us. Martina, are you here to take me to the other side? Taviano, my dear, as far as I know, I haven't been made into a chauffeur to take people to the other side. Martina, is that because you were never a good driver? Taviano, you will go when the time comes. Martina, and you will come for me then? And you will drive me slowly? Taviano, yes. Martina, this is such an unexpected gift. You by my side. Why can't I jump with joy and go tell everybody in the house and the neighborhood? Taviano, we have to keep it a secret. Martina, like having an affair? How does that work? How does that work if you're still my husband? Taviano, oh, we have to honor the line that separates us. Martina, but can we start all over again? I mean, like human flowering? Taviano, like lovers, you mean? Why not? Martina, oh my. How is that possible if I don't want to be indiscreet, but I think I have forgotten how to sigh. How do I say it? It is so difficult to talk about intimacy so late in my life. How do I show you my wrinkled legs? How do you become something like how do you send yourself to me? How do you become something like a letter? Taviano, a letter? Martina, yes. A letter in an envelope that slides into a mailbox, and me, I've become the mailbox. How do I become your mailbox once again so you can slide inside me like a letter? Taviano, well, Martina, we don't always have to be so lyrical. Martina, where should we meet then to have this affair? Taviano, we could meet under a tree or in a dark place in a park. Martina, what if someone catches us? Taviano, well, I will pretend to be playing statues. Martina, I think, I think if you kiss me now, I'll grow 12 inches taller. Taviano, well, in that case, you'll be too tall for me to kiss you a second time. Martina, then I have to tell my bones not to be lofty. Taviano, look at you. You're even blushing. Martina, that's because you're saying all these things to me. Taviano, should I stop then? Martina, how can you stop? Please. Please kiss me, Taviano. Taviano, we can kiss. Martina, do you think that the dog is going to tell on us? Taviano, well, there's bound to be someone. Taviano, I must go. Martina, don't go, Tavio. Don't go, Martina. Did I say something, Tavio? Tavio? And then the granddaughter comes in. Her name is Trini. Abuela, what are you doing here? Martina, talking to my husband? Trini, you shouldn't be up at this hour. Martina, and neither should you. Trini, go back to bed. Martina, why? It's not every day I get to see my husband. I want to listen to music. Trini, come on. It's late. Martina, I don't want to go to bed. That's the end of the scene. Thank you. And this is a scene between Father Monroe and Marcela. Hello, Father, says Marcela. Father Monroe, hello, Marcela. Marcela, am I disturbing you? Father Monroe, no, of course not. Why did you stop playing? She plays the piano, by the way. And but her piano has been sold. So to help the brother go to a graduate school, actually was sold by her mother without telling her. It's really it's really a shame that this happened, because this has been very painful for Marcela, because basically selling the piano is like selling a part of her soul. So Marcela, I just saw the bishop and I thought, Father Monroe, he liked what you were playing, and so did I, and all the saints in the church. What were you playing, Marcela? It sounded so beautiful. Marcela, Scriabin. Do you know his work? Father Monroe, yes. Russian. How could I not recognize it? You made it sound so new to me. What made you come here today to play the piano? Marcela, I needed to listen to music. Father Monroe, I know sometimes you have the need to play because something is bothering you. Is something bothering you, Marcela? Marcela, no, I just felt the urge to play. Father Monroe, what's wrong? Marcela, Marcela, oh, Father, I'm fine. Father, no, you're not. Marcela, I just never thought that things would crumble from one day to another. Father Monroe, isn't your brother going to help you? Marcela, he has no money. He didn't finish his studies. Father Monroe, so is that why you came here to play Scriabin? Marcela, have you ever lost a house, Father? Father Monroe, in my vocation, one trades a house for a church. Marcela, my family lost 2 houses in Cuba, and now this will be the 3rd one. You think we'd get used to it by now? Father Monroe, don't be so concerned. Marcela, why should you put your trust in me to buy back the house from you? Father Monroe, I believe that things will change. Marcela, your words stayed with me the other day, Father, but you are a man of God. Father Monroe, and I see God in you. Marcela, no, I am imperfect. Father Monroe, and so am I. Marcela, have you spoken to God about me? Father Monroe, yes. I told him to take me away from you. Marcela, why didn't he do that? Father Monroe, because I asked him if he would allow me to love another human being, and he was accepting. Marcela, was it really the voice of God who told you this? Or your own voice? Father Monroe, God loved a woman. Her name was Mary. Marcela, no. He only chose her to bear his son. Father Monroe, Do you really believe that he didn't fall in love with her? Marcela, she remained untouched by God according to the scriptures. Father Monroe, but I am not God. And you're not Mary. So the story of Mary and God doesn't apply to us unless you want me to continue loving you from a distance. Marcela, are you capable of loving me that way? Father Monroe, no, I don't think I can. But I can love you the same way he would have wanted to love a woman. Marcela, you have taken a vow of celibacy, Father. Father Monroe, yes, I have. When I was 26 and now I'm 45. And a person changes over the years. And I realize my faith has nothing to do with my body or my clothes. This habit I wear is not my flesh. Marcela, and yet your clothes, the rood screen and the communion rail, all these things were made to create a distance because the holy cannot be with the ordinary. And I am ordinary. Father Monroe, no, you're not, Marcela. And God is love. And loving is the nature of God. Marcela, have you ever been in love with a woman before? Father Monroe, no. Marcela, have you ever made love to a woman? Father Monroe, no. Marcela, were you ever attracted to men? Father Monroe, other men have intrigued me, but not because I wanted to explore their bodies. My curiosity had to do with what I've denied myself in life. Marcela, and what is that? Father Monroe, a certain freedom that I've deprived myself of. Marcela, can I ask you something? Father Monroe, yes. Marcela, have you pleasured yourself thinking of me? Father Monroe, yes. I have. Marcela, then you have distanced yourself from God. Father Monroe, no, not from God, but maybe from the church. Marcela, what will you do then? Father Monroe, that is my quandary, my turmoil. Marcela, can you try to forget me? Father Monroe, no. You consume all my thoughts. Marcela, even the thoughts you have of God? Father Monroe, yes. You're behind every question I pose to him. Marcela, then I am taking you away from him. Father Monroe, no. You've brought me back to myself, and in myself I find him. But a God that demands less of me. Marcela, then you plan to leave the church. Father Monroe, not without you. Marcela, you're placing me in a difficult situation. Father Monroe, it's not just any woman I want, Marcela. So it's not about wanting me because I am forbidden to you. Father Monroe, that will be the wrong reason to love you. Marcela, then you want me as a secret. Father Monroe, you have been my secret. Marcela, and what would happen if your secret was discovered? Father Monroe, I'd lose everything. Marcela, so there wouldn't be any kind of absolution. Father Monroe, no. Marcela, you scare me. All this scares me. Father Monroe, I scare myself. Kiss me, Marcela. Kiss me here in the house of God, in the security of my seclusion and his faith in the two of us. End of scene. Thank you. And this is from Sotto, Voce, the book that I was supposed to read from. But it's never too late, no? I have time, no? And this is a story, like Victor was saying, this is a story between an 80-year-old woman and a young man. He's in his 20s. She's agoraphobic. She doesn't leave her apartment. And this young man has come from Cuba to study to study the St. Louis ship that left from Germany in the 30s, and with a hope full of Jewish refugees, and they were hoping to come to Cuba, but unfortunately these refugees were not allowed into Cuba, and the ship was returned to Europe. And unfortunately, a lot of those Jews that were on that ship ended up in concentration camps. So in the story, the Bernadette, who is the older woman, her lover, her love was actually in that ship. So this is a scene between Sakiel, who is the young man who's come from Cuba, and Bernadette. Sound of a telephone ringing. The answering machine picks up the call, and light reveal Sakiel. Bernadette, are you there? It's Sakiel. Are you there? Bernadette picks up the phone. Yes, this is Bernadette. Sakiel, I didn't think you would answer. Bernadette, you never call at this time. Sakiel, I've been trying to reach you for a few days. Bernadette, I know. I've missed your voice. Sakiel, why didn't you answer the phone? Bernadette, I was writing. What have you done to me, young man? I'm writing again. Sakiel, that's a good thing, isn't it? Bernadette, yes, your voice. It's good to hear your gentle voice again. Sakiel, I've started writing too. I'm writing about us. Bernadette, and what could you write about me? Sakiel, I write what I don't know about you. There can be no relation stranger than ours. Bernadette, is that because we've never met in person? Sakiel, it is strange. After all, we're two people who only know each other through words and our voices. Bernadette, sometimes that's all that is needed. Sakiel, only the voice? Miss Khan? Bernadette, yes, only the voice. Don't call me Miss Khan anymore. Call me Bernadette. And I shall call you Ariel Strauss. Sakiel, why Ariel Strauss? Bernadette, because you have brought him back to me. And he has brought you to me, because for me you are him, and it's frightening writing about you. Sakiel, why frightening? Bernadette, oh, to hear his voice, to hear your voice, my Ariel Strauss, and to want to tell you what I'm writing about as if you would understand. Sakiel, I have understood everything else that you've written. Bernadette, I could never resign myself to think that you were gone forever, my Ariel Strauss. I thought you and your sister Nina had only disappeared. That's what I was writing about this morning. Sakiel, do you have any idea what became of them? Of Ariel Strauss and Nina, his sister? Bernadette, they say the ship dropped anchor early on the morning of May 27 at the Havana harbor and was denied entry to the usual docking areas. The next 6 days in the harbor seemed endless. Then it was finally announced that the passengers would only be allowed to disembark if they had official Cuban visas. Sakiel, and of course, they didn't. Bernadette, no, not Ariel and Nina. And neither did the other Jews. No one thought it was needed. Only 22 Jewish passengers were allowed to disembark on Cuban shores. After long negotiations, the remaining 908 Jewish passengers would try their luck in Miami, but they met the merciless face of America, since entry was also denied to them. It's interesting because this is happening again, right? With the refugees in Europe. Sakiel, do you think this was a plan devised by the Nazis? Bernadette, no. No one knew that at that time. Sakiel, but the St. Louis was forced to return to Europe, showing the world that no one wanted the Jewish refugees. Bernadette, yes. And among those emigres was Ariel and Nina. Sakiel, do you know what country they ended up in? Bernadette, much later. Sakiel, and what country was that? Bernadette, Belgium. But I lost touch with them. Sakiel, they didn't write? Bernadette, I don't know if they did, but I never got any letters. Much later, I found out that they had been taken to a camp halfway between Brussels and Antwerp. Sakiel, when did you find out? Bernadette, after the war, after it was all over. Sakiel, and from there? From the camp? Bernadette, I was told they were transported to another camp in the east from where no one seemed to return. Sakiel, the truth is that most passengers on that ship were sent to death camps, Bernadette, but I didn't want to know that. Sakiel, so you stopped your inquiry. Yes, she says. I stopped. I didn't want to accept the truth of it all. For me, Ariel and Nina stayed on that ship bound for Cuba, where we were supposed to meet. Sakiel, so you much rather remember Ariel and Nina alive. Bernadette, yes. Yes, on their way to Cuba, before they were denied refuge in Havana and Miami. Sakiel, but this journey became their end. Bernadette, no. It was supposed to be their beginning. Sakiel, why is it so difficult for you to admit, Bernadette, admit what? Admit what? That sending them back to Europe was the same as killing them? Sakiel, that's a fact. Bernadette, no. That's like letting darkness fall upon them or covering them with a wall of certainty. Sakiel, that's what happened. Even God can change what took place. Bernadette, but I see so clearly what God could have prevented and how he should have intervened. I started praying after that. I stopped. It's that day of the crossing when Ariel and Nina leave for Cuba that I start loving Ariel with the same blind faith of a Jew. And it's with that same strength of faith that I confront my father. I ask him if he has bought tickets for Ariel and Nina on the St. Louis to get rid of them. My father tells me they're better off in Cuba, away from the madness, away from the chaos all around us, away from the hellish nightmare, bro. But away from me? Away from me, I shout. Yes, away from you, he tells me. It couldn't go on, he says. A Gentile and a Jew? It just couldn't go on, my little Babs. Not now, Bernadette. Not now, mein Liebling. My father tells me he's done this to protect them, to protect me. My father. My poor father. He thinks he's saving Ariel and Nina. He thinks he's offering me salvation. From then on, everything becomes a blur. I walk around the city and try to find myself in Berlin. But Berlin is no longer a place for me. I can't live here anymore. I stare at the puddles of rain evaporating on the streets, and the memory of Ariel invades my body. Like the vanishing rain, he begins to rise and become every part of my being. The memory of him pursues me everywhere. It emblazons me. I stare from a stranger, a glare from a passerby, a shaft of light reminds me that he's within me. He has become part of my being. I have become my Jewish lover. I am Ariel Strauss, naked and defenseless. And even though I don't have a star pinned to my dress, my star is there, invisible, fixed to my chest, because I carry within me the memory of a Jew who was my beloved. So I too have become a Jew in a city, in a country that wants to exterminate all Jews. Sakiel. How old would Ariel Strauss be now? Bernadette. He would be as old as you, as old as I am, and as young as you are. But are you trying to find out my age? Sakiel, I know how old you are, Bernadette. So my 19 years did me in. Sakiel, not necessarily. Bernadette, young man, if you only knew that in the mathematical of age, every wrinkle is counted. Sakiel, and who counts? Bernadette, probably God, to remind us of our end. Sakiel, have you written all this down? Bernadette, no. Another Bernadette, who is foolish and mad, has written about it, because to babble over scraps of life is to betray the past. Sakiel, you're not babbling, Bernadette. Bernadette, I am. Memories are inefficient and very, very impolite. Sakiel, but they're also obedient to some extent. Bernadette, and what good does divulging these memories do, young man? Sakiel, they are part of you. They are part of who you are. Trust your story. Trust me. Bernadette, believe me, young man. My hands will love to hand you every page, but my memories are unconvinced. Sakiel, then trust your hands. Bernadette. You always know what to say. You always say what I like to hear, don't you? Sakiel, I just say what comes to mind. Bernadette. I don't know what I'm going to do when you're gone. Sakiel, I will come back. Bernadette. If Lucila, my caretaker, were eavesdropping on our conversation, she would think we're having an affair. Sakiel, I think we are. Bernadette, you think there's a love affair here? Sakiel, yes. If voices could have affairs, that would be the case. Bernadette, in fact. Now that I think about it, there's more than one affair, writer and student, youth and old age. She laughs. Sakiel, you're laughing. How good to hear you laugh. Bernadette, well, this is what happens when one lives in silence for so long. One runs the risk of falling for a voice. She laughs, coughs, and becomes lightheaded. All of a sudden, I feel very tired, as if, Sakiel, do you want to hang up? Bernadette, no, I'm afraid. Sakiel, are you all right, Bernadette? Bernadette, maybe I should hang up. Sakiel, can I call you later? Bernadette, are you all right? Bernadette, Bernadette, are you there? Bernadette, are you all right? Bernadette, Bernadette. All of a sudden, Bernadette has a blank stare. She becomes very pale, as if life has abandoned her. Bernadette is motionless, sitting in her chair. Blackout. Thank you. So if you have any questions about my process as a writer, here I am.
Folks, if there are questions, what we're going to do is raise your hand and let me get to you with the microphone so that the internet audience will be able to hear what you say. Don't be shy. Our first lucky contestant.
Well, since you asked what you want us to ask, I was wondering.
You can ask whatever you like.
A couple of questions. First, where do you get your inspirations for your different plays? And secondly, why the title to this last one, Sotto Voce?
Yes. My inspiration, it's really interesting. It changes with every play. And usually when I write a play, when I start writing a play, I begin with an image. Usually it's characters. And to be frank with you, I begin sometimes with an initial idea or an initial image, and then I let the play take its own course. So what I think the play is going to be about, sometimes the play ends up being about something else, which is really great, I think, because it's not about having a fixed itinerary and being a tourist writing, but being an explorer and exploring the world through your characters. So, for instance, in this play, Bathing in Moonlight, the story began with his family. I was very interested in the real estate crisis that we had a few years back, right? And a lot of people were losing their houses. So that was the initial image. And then I discovered that there was a character that had bought the house so this family could stay living in it. And then I started to do a little bit more research, and then I discovered that he was a priest. And then I did more research. Of course, I looked at the life of Father Cuti or Padre Alberto, and then because the person who had bought the house it seemed like he was very intrigued by this woman, and I said, well, maybe he's a priest, and anyway, so it opened a whole window for me, and then I discovered that the play is very much about the love story about this priest who has a change of heart late in his life, and I began to question, we have gay marriage nowadays. Why can't a priest marry a woman? We have rabbis that have wives, and in the Catholic Church, or the Eastern Catholic Church, priests can get married. So, and these are things that I started to question in this piece. In terms of your other question about Sotto Voce, these characters, Bernadette and Sakiel, never meet. They only speak on the phone. and they connect with each other via the internet. So she refers to him via this soft voice that he has, this young man. So that's why it's called Sotto Voce, gentle voice, which is a term that is used in music for gentle music, but it's also used for it really the voce, no? So it's soft voice, gentle voice. Yes.
Next.
So in staging the play, I mean, do we see both characters? Or do you have like a split?
Yes, a really good question. So in staging Sotto Voce, I got to direct it, and it was an honor working with this piece because I got to get my hands on it. A lot of people read the play. A lot of people are afraid of the play because they think that these people are all, both characters are living in separate realities or different locations, and that is done through light. But I am very intrigued by the concept of how does a voice enter a house? How, when we're speaking on the phone, how to become so acquainted with each other, we feel so comfortable with each other that all the communications barriers are broken. So basically, when I did the play, it did start, we did delineate the spaces through lighting, and then at one point, sort of those lines went away, and they were almost like talking to each other. And then there's one part of the play in which they both meet, but only through the imagination. They actually meet, but through they don't actually meet, but they meet through the imagination.
That's great. I've seen all of the plays that you've produced here. The last one was Tsunami.
Yeah, Tsunami.
Yeah,
that was
which I
that was
loved.
yeah.
Yeah. And Anna in the Tropics was fabulous.
Oh, thank you.
Did you have a chance by any means to read The Voyage of the St. Louis?
Yes, absolutely. Voyage of the Damned. Yes, I did read that. And there are a few books that I read when I was doing the research. Not only did I read that book, but I saw the movie. The movie that was made, I think, in the 80s, which was a lovely film. Oh, God, what is her name? The actress who was in... Faye Dunaway. Thank you so much. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yes. I mean, so with this play, Sotto Voce, I did, when I began writing the play, I was actually writing at that time. And then I thought, maybe I should write it in the present as well, that maybe someone is doing research. So I had written, there's a few scenes that with actually the sister and the brother when they're on the ship. There's one scene that ended up in the play, but there were several that I had written that actually did not end up in the piece. But I wrote them just as a way of exploring that moment in time. Again, going back to my my process as a writer, I believe in doing several sketches, writing several scenes before actually entering the canvas, before actually writing the actual piece.
It was excellent.
Thank you so much.
Okay. So,
well, I do sketches too. I do sketches, but when I'm referring to sketches, I mean writing scenes that are in some ways like sketches. That again don't end up in the scene, but it just is a way of finding more about the world of the piece.
Just briefly, I was sort of surprised at it seems like a leitmotif, your God leitmotif that carries through, which is sort of odd in a contemporary play. Not only that, it's a very traditional view of God, but I guess it would be even more traditional if you had the Father Alberto character lose his faith as a result of this woman. So, that he finds that incompatible instead of finding divinity in her. So, I don't know. How do you feel about God? I guess you have a very firm and, traditional concept of God, of the Judeo-Christian God, a male Judeo-Christian God.
I think that the divine is within us. I think that I could see the divine in you and in other people as well. And unfortunately, some people. Sorry. Yeah. I mean, I'm interested in the manifestation of the sublime, of the divine, in humans. Maybe because of my being Catholic, my being Christian. um, and those qualities of the divine in us and recognizing them, because I think that they're there, and whether you exercise them or not, then that's a different story. But I think that they're there, and we have to search for them. And I think it's and I think that the whole concept of love and the whole concept of loving thy neighbor and is something that was very curious to me. Of course, she's not the neighbor here, but she becomes a lover. but to me was sort of very intriguing when looking at the character of Father Monroe, and again that turmoil of making choices for himself, and of course, at the end of the play, he does decide to leave the church. It becomes a big scandal, similar to the scandal that happened with Father Alberto. And he does. I shouldn't tell you this. You should come see the play when it opens at McCarter.
Spoilers, right? A lot of spoilers here. You had a question.
Hi, and thank you so much for the great reading. I have a question about both readings. And I noticed that you have two older ladies as the main characters. Is there any significance of that for you in your life?
Yes. As a matter of fact, this play, Sotto Voce, in some way was very much it's inspiration. Inspiration comes from so many sources. Another inspiration for Sotto Voce was really someone who was very close to me, a friend. Actually, she just passed recently, and she was in her 70s, and she was my best friend. I don't think we never had a love relationship, but she was my best friend. And someone who really understood me as an artist, someone that I could talk to about all kinds of things. As a matter of fact, she was an art connoisseur. She was a tour guide at the Metropolitan Museum. She was an exquisite lady and who would travel to see my work everywhere. And at one point said, I think we should tell people that I'm your godmother, that I'm not just your friend, because we were very, very close. And so in some ways it is inspired by that, but taken to another level. And I'm, of course, taking, poetic license with that relationship and creating something completely different.
You're in the back.
Thank you. Hi, thank you so much for your reading. I was wondering if you could talk a little more about your writing process. You had said you sketch the kind of ideas that you might want to write about, and then you let the writing kind of guide you. But I was wondering, since your work is play and not a traditional novel, in what sense do you have of the writing process where you're trying to capture multiple voices, multiple characters? That's the nature of the play, right? So do you sketch out an individual character and build out a kind of internal dialogue from that one point of view and then shift into another point of view? I'm trying to get to, I guess, understand what it means to write from one perspective as a narrator and yet actually capture something that seems to be dialogical, essentially. How do you do it from one perspective versus multiple perspectives?
Well, it's not complicated, to be honest with you. The way I was taught to write theater is it's not unlike the process that actors use, the Stanislavski, the method process, in order to get in touch with their characters, or like based on sense memory, to use your own life in order to create a character, to also observe life in order to create a character. But more than anything, when I begin writing a play, the first thing I do is, again, close my eyes and try to visualize the character. What does the character look like? What the place where the character is at. And it's very important to explore location, because the dialogue becomes very different according to the location. Like, for instance, if I'm going for an interview, I'm going to probably be very proper, probably wear a tie and speak in a very proper way. If I were talking to a friend at a bar, maybe I'll curse, or maybe I just. So what comes with the environment, and also observing the behavior of the character through images, through visualization. So it's not that I only write one voice. I immediately look at the character and say, and I'd say actually listen to the character. And if the character is by himself or herself, or if someone is next to this person, or if the character is only speaking, why isn't the other person speaking? For instance, I have a play in which a young boy lost his voice. He became mute all of a sudden because he from a fright. And at the beginning, I didn't know this. His aunt was actually talking, and then much later I realized that this young man had lost his voice. So for me, more than anything, in order to capture the voice of the characters, I do an enormous amount of visualization. And what I do is before I begin the writing process, I center myself, I do yoga, and then from then on, I begin to dream, to visualize the characters, and from there, I begin to write. Now, later on, I go back to the piece again and look at the writing a second time and try to maybe listen to what the unspoken, if the unspoken is actually at one point spoken or not, or does it just become subtext in the piece? So again, it's one layer, and then I go back, and then I look at the other layer of dialogue. And that's how I come up with the scenes, and then eventually, then I go back, I look at the whole piece, and then I sort of sculpt. It's about, I think writing is about, you have to start with something. If you don't have anything, you can sculpt. You can create a situation. You can create a scene. So,
Who else has a question? Questions, comments? Still plenty of time. Here we go.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for that wonderful reading that you have done. I noticed that you have a very, as you said, clear voice and a very clear vision about your characters, so much that you can really, really act it, doing a wonderful
although
reading.
I'm not an actor.
Well,
No, I'm not. I don't know. I have terrible memory, and I have stage fright. No.
yeah, but my question is, if I'm intrigued by the way that you read it, basically. Since you have that clear voice, and I can see that you really know your characters, what is your protocol or criteria in order to choose when you're not going to direct and you're going to give your piece to another theater, that you are kind of like that almost you have gave birth to people that you really know, and then just give it to someone? How that goes? You really want it exactly as you are reading, or I know they wouldn't, but anyhow, I wanted to hear what you have.
Yeah, absolutely, no. I mean, I think, and I always say this, and I'm probably, if others have heard me say this before, I think theater is probably the most generous art form because it's about interpretation. What does an actor bring to a role? I mean, how many times we've seen, Three Sisters or Hamlet being done by different actors? Is what that actor brings to that role. I'm fascinated when I'm in New York or here in Miami, and I go into a room for an audition, how what different actors bring to the role. So again, I might have a sense of what the character, or more than anything, what you heard me, the way that I read it was more, I try to capture more when I read my plays, the musicality of the language. I'm very interested in the music of the language. And I think that the characters must know Latin music. Yeah. And if you notice, at one point, I did not do very good with the German woman because I said Cuba instead of Cuba, maybe, or because it's a different kind of sensibility for me. But again, there is the language is composed in a certain way to try to capture a certain kind of tonality, an emotional tonality, and that I always usually directors and actors pick up on that, and I always hope that those rhythms are captured in the productions. It's very important to me to capture again, because we write. I don't think it's about writing dialogue. I think it's about writing music, because I think at the end of the day, that's what we're writing. We're writing music for the stage. I'm not interested in writing the sort of dialogue, although that I would hear at the bodega. You know, I mean, that's a point of departure in some ways. But then I try to go deeper than that and say, well, it's not just about what crackers I'm going to buy at the bodega, but you know, what am I buying the crackers for? You know, and what happens to me when I leave the bodega with a bag of crackers and maybe I have an accident or something. You know, so it's more than just what's on the surface. And again, trying to capture the music of language.
It's interesting how you said, I got my hands on it when you got direct. It was literally, it was hands-on.
Well, you know, to be honest with you, I started as a director in the theater. And I think a writer, a playwright must know about acting, directing. You must know about stage design. You must know about lighting design. You must know how to sweep. You must sweep a stage in order to be acquainted with the stage. You have to know about the stage. I don't understand when playwrights, you know, don't have any understanding of how the stage operates, how what actors have to go through. You have to know. It's that's why, you know, it's interesting because I've been writing for film, and film is a mystery to me because although I've written several screenplays, none of them have gotten made. So my curiosity is when these screenplays will actually be made, what are they going to look like? And although screenwriting it's not about what's written, but what happens in the, or I should say film, what happens in the editing room, not screenwriting. Right? So it is a mystery to me still. Oh, most likely.
So how important stage design?
Yes, I do at one point, I do give some, at the beginning, I give some description of what I think the set should look like, but I also leave room for interpretation. Like for instance, in my play, Bathing in Moonlight, I always thought that all the furniture should be suspended in midair, like because these people are in a moment of suspension. They don't know what's going to happen with their house, and I thought that would be an interesting thing, and I didn't want it to be like extremely realistic. The director really doesn't want the furniture suspended, so that's okay. That's okay. But what was interesting about that description was that he wants a non-realistic set, and I said yes, I don't want a non-realistic set. As a matter of fact, when I was last week in Princeton, I saw a rendition of what the set design looked like, and there was a sofa, and I said, please, no sofas. You know, every place seems to have a sofa, and if you do have a sofa, make it, you know, it's not one of those. Make it interesting. You know, I mean, buy an interesting sofa. Yeah.
In your process of discovering your characters, you ever discover one that you flat out didn't like and had to write about it anyway?
No, I always liked all of them. No, I always, you know, the thing about characters that you almost have to fall in love with them, but sometimes you have to be ruthless too, because if you have to kill them, you have to, you know. But I think it's very important to understand. You know, to really have a deep understanding of their erroneous zones and the sides that are more benign, more benevolent. But I find, you know, I tend to fall in love with all of them. It's hard to kill them sometimes.
I hope that wasn't another spoiler.
Huh?
I hope it wasn't another spoiler.
No, there's no death in these scenes.
Oh,
in this
very good.
place. No, there's no death. She has a stroke actually at the end after that, but she's okay.
All right, one last question.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just curious, when you've created a play and then you've decided not to direct it yourself and you turn it over to another director, Are there reservations? I mean, are you worried about what they're going to do with the play?
Yes, but the beautiful thing about North American theater, contrary to Latin American theater, is that we still have power in this country. The writer is very important. And at the beginning, when there's a premiere of a play, we are involved in the conversations. We are involved when there is table work and the play is being discussed. Our voice is, we're allowed to speak.
Yeah, that's great.
All right, last question here in the third row.
Okay, I'm going to try to ask in English. Have ever an actor surpasses your expectation of the character that you created on your imagination? Has everyone come to an audition and show you, or as a performer, surpasses what you created?
All the time. All the time. And that's the beauty of working with actors, what they do to your language and how they raise the language to another level. I love actors because they make my plays, well, especially the good actors, they make my play seem better. They can if you have a bad actor, well, of course, they can also destroy your play. You have a bad design, you can destroy your play as well. But I love actors because they do raise the play to a higher level. Thank you.
Thank you
for joining me. Thank you.
All right, I got some closing comments. Folks, a note to our internet audience watching at home that there's still time for you to call the number on your screen and you can get a copy of the play sent to wherever you are in the U.S. free of charge. For those of you here in the house, we have Sotto Voce as well as many of Nilo's other works for sale at the counter in the front room over there. He's going to be signing here at the table to the left of the podium, and it was so great having him here. Please give another hand to Nilo Cruz. Thanks very much. Thank you, Nilo. All right.